Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's topic, a journey of discovery. It's not your fault. And we'll get into that in just a moment. We're going to just kind of scoot along here real quick in the beginning because we have a wonderful surprise. We didn't think Glenn was going to be with us tonight, but he is. So we will say hello to the rest of the panel. My name is Jason Cripps. I'm the host of the broadcast for those listening for the first time. And with us, as always, we have our wonderful friend from Australia, Glenn. Glenn, take a minute to say hello to everyone.
Howdy. Busy times.
Short and sweet and right to the point. And
busy times. I got to go and get the clothes dry.
Yeah. So Glenn's going to step off for a minute. So we wanted to introduce him first, and then we'll introduce the other members of the panel, and then Glenn will be back here shortly. So thank you, Glenn, and we will introduce Marisa from Ohio, which is close to my home state of Michigan. I have to drive through Ohio. Well, I guess I don't have to. I could go around Ohio, but there's no reason to. Ohio is a lovely state. Anyway, our friend Marisa. Marisa, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. Welcome to True Story Live every Sunday, God willing, here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks to everybody who watches that replay. And please share it out on your social media if you are so inclined. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to digging into tonight's discussion, and I'm very glad that Glenn is here with us. And I can't wait to have a wonderful discussion. Looking forward to it. Woohoo!
Well, what a fantastic introduction. Thank you, Marisa. Not to be undone, we have my amazing wife, Jen. Jen, say hello to the people, please.
Oh, yeah, Marisa completely outdid me. I'm not feeling the best. I'm like, hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, I'm Eeyore. It's good to be here. Good to see everybody in the chat and looking forward to the discussion. Glad you guys are all here.
Yeah.
Especially Glenn. And it's Sandra's birthday today. So if you guys would like, while Glenn stepped away to do laundry, y'all could pop some happy birthdays in the chat for Miss Sandra.
Yes, Miss Sandra. Happy birthday to her. And we're glad, as I said, we didn't think we'd have Glenn here. So he's really taken one for the team, doing the broadcast with us when it's his wife's birthday.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has, plans for her, I'm assuming. But, so we'll celebrate Sandra's birthday. And, okay, we've got all our introductions out of the way. Again, as I said, the topic for tonight is a journey of discovery. It's not your fault. This one was written by Jen, and we'll get into that in just a second. But first, we will say hello to anyone that's in the chat. And we have Jen do that. So, Jen, if you could take a second and welcome everyone, and then we'll get going.
Yes. All right. We've got Believe in the chat and Miss Nez. We have Andrew. Hey, Andrew. Nathan Gruber's here. Rachel Menifee. Tony's Coffee House. Big Tim. And I think that John Don's just popped in. Hey, John.
Yeah.
Good to see all you guys.
We were just
hello, Big Tim. Sorry.
I was going to give you a chance to say hello to your peeps. Just sit tight 1 second with me. We were just talking about my friend John. I always called him Rob, but I guess he's going by John now, which is his name. But I'm just so used to calling him Rob. But anyway, we were talking about him, and in a good way, the other night, my wife and I. So it's good to see him in there. Also, Nathan Gruber, he was here last week, and he pops in when he can from time to time. So we're glad to see him. And Nez, please welcome your peeps in here. We sure appreciate anyone that comes over from Nez's channel, and I'm seeing some familiar names from the other night even.
Yeah, we've got Big Tim. Thank you for coming by. And if anybody has prayer requests, Big Tim is a wonderful prayer warrior. go on and see Big Tim. He takes prayer requests. There's Bobby, my bestie of over 40 years. Hi, Bobby. And hello to Andrew. I think that's all the Nez peeps that have come in. So, and Tony's Coffee House. He's kind of all of our peeps.
I love Tony's Coffee House.
I do too. Well, thank you guys for coming. And happy birthday to Glenn's wife, Sandra. So throw that out there.
Yep. So just to be clear, I love everyone, but it's just delightful to me to see people coming over from other places. We've basically, since we had Marisa join us, we've basically doubled the folks that come into the actual chat. I mean, we have people that continually watch the broadcast after the fact, and we're grateful for you folks as well. But I'm just referring to people that actually enjoy the chatting. So we will say hello to anyone else that pops in after the fact as we go, as we like to do.
Hold on, Okie Grower just slid in. Hi, Okie. Love ya. Okay. He just squeaked on in there.
That's a compulsion.
She can't help herself.
I can't. You said, don't say that. Oh, he just popped in. I'm sorry.
No. They don't have to be sorry. It's hilarious. But there we go.
Woo!
Yeah, Nathan Gruber. All right. Me.
I'm going to listen and mute my mic now. Okay. Glenn's telling me in my mind to mute my mic. Okay. I'm listening.
All right. We're going to dive in. And thank you to Jen for taking the time to write this write-up. I'm very excited about it as well. This is a topic that I think everyone can learn from, and we hope that this conversation and answering the questions that we have up here will benefit someone. And as always, when we start the questions, we love it when you participate. So if you want to answer the questions in the chat, we would love to put it on the screen and read your answers if you would like us to do that. We always try to take a look and notice when you're answering in the chat, but it's a lot easier if you put it all in caps or if you message it to someone. So I'm sure most of you know this, but if you put the @ symbol and then whoever's name you want to notice it into the chat, it will highlight it on our end. Okay. All right. So here we go. Again, Jennifer wrote this one, and it's entitled A Journey of Discovery. It's Not Your Fault. How many of us live our adult lives with self-limiting beliefs? How many of you feel like a child living in an adult's body? How many of us feel as if we are broken, or something deep inside us feels like there is something wrong with us? Maybe it's just me. Tonight's musical inspiration is by NF and a song entitled Trauma, and the link is in the description. This past Friday, I watched a video on YouTube on a channel called Cinema Therapy, and the two hosts, who are licensed therapists, walk through the movie Good Will Hunting and discuss it from a therapist's point of view. When they talked about the scene where Robin Williams, the therapist in the story, tells Matt Damon, the main character, it's not your fault, regarding the abuse he went through as a kid, it touched something deep inside of me. I got really emotional. Later that night, I cried in Jason's arms, and all that kept running through my head was, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I have grown up feeling woefully unprepared to be an adult because I wasn't prepared to function as one after leaving home. I also wasn't prepared to handle other things regarding unsafe people, including narcissism. I don't believe this was done on purpose by my parents, but it doesn't change the fact that it has affected my entire life. Now there comes a time when someone needs to put aside what was done to them or not taught to them as children, and decide to educate themselves about life, adult things, and how to do them. But when someone feels that something is wrong with them, it's hard to think one is capable of such a thing. For me, it felt as if it was an unscalable mountain. I knew I needed to learn, but that mountain just looked so daunting and scary. When I was little, as every child does, I made mistakes. The response to those mistakes shaped what I mentioned in the above paragraph. The way my father responded to my mistakes made me feel like I should already know how to do it right. There was guilt and shame attached to these instances, and I came away feeling like an idiot for not knowing how to do something correctly or that making mistakes was a bad thing. It also created in me this little person who was afraid to make any mistakes for fear of my dad going into a rage about it and punishing me. After I was punished, I was left in my room by myself to cry it out. No one came to me and talked to me. No one came to me and said what I did was wrong, but I wasn't a bad kid. So I just believed. I lost my place. Hold on. So I just believed I was a bad kid. Something must be broken in me for me to be left with no comfort, no discussion, and nothing explained. I've learned that if blank spaces are left empty, especially for a child, usually those blank spaces are filled with negative things. Way back then, I didn't know better, but I felt like it was my fault. It was my fault I didn't know better. It was my fault I could not make mistakes. It was my fault no one came to me to comfort me and explain. It was all my fault. I believe we all have experiences like this that shaped us as adults. How did your parents react when you made a mistake? How did it make you feel about yourself afterward? What does a person do in order to find out if their childhood experiences are still affecting them in their adult life? Do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult? Why do you think they are there, or where did those beliefs come from? Is it your fault? I am well aware that we are adults, and with that comes the responsibility to change and do something different or learn better ways to do things. We can get stuck in blaming people or experiences for the way we are currently, but there comes a time when we take responsibility for changing it. I can see how my upbringing affected me, but whose responsibility is it to change my own personal beliefs and actions regarding myself and my life? Mine. But recognizing these self-limiting beliefs were put there in my childhood is the key, at least my key, to healing those wounds and doing something different. Maybe you too have something that happened to you as a child that shaped you, something that you need to realize wasn't your fault. But it's a new day, and you, like me, are capable of changing it. All right. And that's the end of the write-up. I'll read the ending at the ending. And wow, okay. So we have a lot to dig into tonight. And let me just check the chat and make sure we got Janet popped in. Janet, great to see you. We're glad that you're here. Janet's been a friend of ours for a long time. She was part of the original, it's the same channel, but we used to do things quite a bit differently. We had larger panels for those of you that weren't around then. We had sometimes, I think the most we had on one night was, didn't we have 7 people, Jen? Do you remember that? We had like 7 people or 6
in the
people.
chat?
No, on the panel. Back when,
oh, yeah. Gosh. Yeah, I think we got up to 6 or 7. That was a little crazy.
It was crazy. And as the host, especially initially when we were doing that, it was very hard to keep things, because we had some people that would talk a really lot, and we have someone like Glenn whose answers are short and sweet and to the point, but there were other people that just seemed to kind of go on and on. So that was an interesting time. But they're all archived. So if anyone wants to listen to how hilarious some of that rigmarole and chaos was, they're all in there for you. You can go back to the beginning on the channel.
I remember the show on divorce. That was a tense one. At least for me.
The way you said that was perfect. That was a tense one. Yeah, it was. That was great. Yeah, because of all, many people have really strong opinions on divorce. And so that was, anytime you talk about something like that, it pretty much divides people who believe different things about it. Yeah, but that's all in there. So give that a listen. Give those broadcasts a listen. But we're happy with what we're doing now. We're happy with the panel that we have, Glenn, Jen, myself, and especially Marisa. And I say especially because she has really added a lot, in my opinion, to the show. A sense of humor and some really good answers to some of the questions, and does excellent write-ups as well. So super excited.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Super excited. Okay, so as I said, when anyone pops in the chat, we'll try to make sure and say hello to them. But let's dive into this thing and see what we can come up with. So again, I thought about it after the fact. We should have popped the link in there for the video that Jen and I watched. She watched it and sent it to me. And it's right up my alley. I'm a big movie fan. I love watching movies, and I love therapy. I love hearing people talk about movie scenes and stuff like that. And I've spent a lot of time watching things like that. And I didn't know this existed, but this particular channel was very insightful and fun. Their graphics were a little cheesy to me, but it made me laugh. And so I think there's a lot of value in that. And this particular movie, Good Will Hunting, was, I think, very well done. And I very much miss Robin Williams. But this scene in particular that Jen is referring to, I cried when I watched it the other night. And I think it's because a lot of us have this idea that things were our fault when we were a kid. And obviously it was a big enough deal for them to make a point of it for the character, Will, for him to have his therapist bring this up to him and say several times, it's not your fault. And at first he's kind of, I know, kind of has a smile on his face, and he kept saying it. And then here comes the waterworks. It got in there underneath his brash exterior and got into the heart of him. So obviously he might have known in his head that it wasn't his fault, but deep somewhere inside him, we might carry that around with us, that it is our fault. We might take the blame on ourselves. So
he even almost got a little violent before the waterworks came.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He said, don't mess with me. That's not the word he used, but he's, not you, don't mess with me. Sean was the therapist's name. That's right. I couldn't remember right away, but his name was Sean. But so, maybe if I have time toward the end, I'll try to find that clip. Or if Jen, if you have time and want to pop that in the chat.
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did already? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. So let's dive into it. All right. So going down to the first question that we have, and I'll read the part above it before I ask the question. So Jen says, way back then, I did not feel, I didn't know better, but it was like it was my fault. It was my fault. I didn't know better. It was my fault. I could not make mistakes. It was my fault. No one came to me to comfort me and explain. It was all my fault. I believe we all have experiences like this that shaped us as adults. So the first question, how did your parents react when you made mistakes? how did your parents react when you made mistakes? And again, if anyone wants to answer that question in the chat,
and it could be positive or negative.
Positive or negative, yeah. We're not making anyone just answer however you'd like to. So anyone in the chat, if you want to answer that question, but we're going to start with Marisa on this one. How did your parents react when you made a mistake, Marisa?
Well, I got treated like that I should have known better, even if it was something that I was just a child and you really don't know all that much, when you're just little.
Right.
But there was a high expectation for, doing right, behaving, and a high expectation is a good way to put it. If you did something well, it was more like, well, why wasn't it better than congratulations on doing something,
Yeah.
well.
Right.
It was not the most supportive environment, and that's pretty much all I can say about that. I'm not saying that they didn't congratulate me on some things here and there, but for the most part, it was not the most supportive environment, and there was more shaming and things like that going on if you did something they didn't like, whether it was actually something wrong or not. So that's where I'm coming from.
I gotcha. Thank you, Marisa. I appreciate you sharing that. We'd like to say hello to Annette, our friend Annette Sandrock, who popped in the chat while we were talking. And we're glad to see you and hope you're doing well. I hope your daughter's doing well. Let us know in the chat, because we've been praying, and hope that she's doing better. All right, Jen, how about you? I know that you have mentioned this a little bit in the write-up, but I know you have more than one story about what you went through as far as how did your parents react when you made a mistake. So let's hear one of the stories, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll just say this one thing. Sometimes it was met with anger. Most times it was met with irritants.
Yeah.
Which, when you see a parent getting irritated with you that you don't know how to do something, I think it's natural for you to have these inner thoughts and feelings that go to the place of, I should know better, because of the way they're reacting.
Right.
And I felt stupid. And for me, and this goes beyond, what I shared in the write-up, but it started morphing into all of these things that happened. It just kept morphing into more and more negative stuff for me. My internal thoughts, like something's wrong with me, I'm broken. And with this constant dynamic between making mistakes and the reaction I got mostly from my dad, I started feeling like I was the one responsible for him being so angry. And then that eventually morphed into me feeling like everything was my fault.
Yeah.
Anytime something was going wrong in the family home, I started assuming it was my fault.
Right.
Which then morphed into a lifetime of all kinds of stuff. So that was one of the reasons I was not encouraged. That's not the right word. It's one of the reasons I went this route for this write-up, because I think a lot of us as children, not everybody, but I think a lot of us, we get to adulthood and something's off, like deep inside of us, so like core belief. And it's difficult sometimes to pinpoint where that came from, because I do think you have to go back and address it.
Right.
Why am I self-sabotaging, for example? Like, why am I self-sabotaging? What does that come from? Why is that there? Why is that even a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
But like I know I've shared the dishes story before, but sometimes I would mop the floor, sweep and mop the kitchen floor, and my dad was notorious for coming back to check it. Right. And I do think he was a little OCD. but he would come back and check it, and it wouldn't be to his liking. I don't ever remember it ever being to his liking, but he would redo it and make me stand there and watch. Now, he would give me pointers on why and how and stuff, but it was always with this air like I was an idiot for not knowing better, you know?
Right.
And there might have been some times I maybe have taken it that way, but there was instances that because of his anger and irritants, I don't know how else a child could internalize that, but feeling like an idiot, feeling like you should know better, you know?
Yeah.
And it just was never like, hey, you know, you've never done this before, so let me show you a better way to do it. Or, you know, coming at it from a more loving and accepting place. Like, hey, I know you're a kid.
Sure.
Let me show you a better way of doing it. It just was never like that.
Wow. Okay.
Rough.
Well, join the club, and I'll answer in just a minute. Thank you, Jen, for sharing that. We want to say hello to Mr. Nas. I don't know, or Mr. NAS. I'm not sure how they say that.
It's Mr. Nas, and he's one of
right.
my international peeps, and he was with my channel for many years. And please pray for him and his health conditions. It's a miracle to see him here tonight. Good to see you, Mr. Nas. Welcome back to YouTube.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome back to YouTube, and welcome to our channel. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you, and you're welcome anytime. And also, our good friend Jamie Grace is in the chat, and please pray for her. So just some physical stuff going on. We have a lot of that tonight. So I remember Marisa was saying that there's one of the folks in the chat is a prayer warrior. So you've got a list piling up tonight. We have several people for you to pray about. We'll try to mention them again at the end if you're still with us, and you can go before the throne in prayer for those folks. So thank you for being willing to do that. We appreciate you. So Mr. Nas and also Jamie popped in the chat while we were talking. So thank you. Let's go to Glenn. I know probably his experience was a little bit different, but who knows what kind of stories he'll tell. Glenn, how did your parents react when you made a mistake growing up?
Okay, well, the first thing I need to say is I was never denied love regardless of what I did, and I did lots.
Right.
My brother was the goody two-shoes, and I was the little shit, the rebellious kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So I honestly don't think they knew how to handle me. They'd react, but mainly if I was disobedient, that's not really a mistake, but we'll get to that. So we'll use disobedience. I got a flogging with wooden coat hangers.
Wow.
Constantly.
Wow.
Course. That didn't work, but it hurt. Ouch. I can feel it. And so I would, being rebellious, I'd go out of my way to antagonize them and get them riled up. Sort of, yeah.
Wow.
You guess what that's all about?
Yeah, sure.
Mistakes? No, I don't think they really did that much. They really just said, okay, you made a mistake. Never faulted, never sort of tried to say, oh, you're a failure, you're at fault. They'd say more like, well, how could you do it better next time? That sort of attitude. So for me, I didn't really experience that blame fault mentality. I only really experienced the disobedience punishments that came over, but I was never punished per se for making mistakes.
Okay. Well, that might be why you're so well adjusted, Glenn.
Why? What made you say that?
That's not a joke. It's serious.
I'm not joking. I'm saying that if your parents reacted better to, even though you were acting up, I mean, you got some stern punishment, but you said you were never made to feel bad about making a mistake, though.
Oh, never. No. That's just it's like they had the mentality that I have. That's probably where I got it from. Was you need to stuff it up, and if you stuff it up, we're not going to take you down for it. We may not necessarily agree with what you did, but we'll be here to support you regardless.
Right. That's what I'm referring to. That's probably why you're so well adjusted, is that you didn't have this reaction that Jen's mentioning and what I'm about to mention from my perspective, because it's very different than your experience.
Well, I think okay. So once I got older and dropped all the rebellious crap. Oh no, I didn't drop it, but I modified it.
Right.
Because I knew I was really hurting myself, and I was really punishing myself and not other people that I thought I was.
Right.
So that didn't seem to make sense.
Right.
So if I took that out of the equation, still remained rebellious, but in a different way, well then, yeah, you're right. My attitude is very much that carried forward into my kids, and it was role modeled to me by my parents.
Right. Right.
And that's why I think maybe that's why the kids are well adjusted.
Yeah. There you go. Glad we cleared that up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on, but yeah.
No, you're fine.
I hadn't really thought about it that much, but it was a fair, good question.
Okay. Yeah. Great question, Jen. You hear that? You got a little compliment from Glenn there. That's great.
I can take it back.
No, don't
do it. Do it. Take it back. I don't need your validation.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Glenn. All right. So mine is similar to Jen's. In fact, I think our parents should get together and go bowling sometimes, because their reactions to things were quite similar. In fact, I was laughing quietly to myself when Jen tells the dishwasher story. My dad's very much like that as well. And I believe he was OCD, perfectionist when it comes to everyone else. But then his own situation, it's organized chaos, in my opinion, but it's not clean and nice and all that. But he does know where everything is. He's a trim carpenter, and if you go in the back of his truck, there's sawdust everywhere and all of that, but everything's in its right place. So very much a paradox to me. But so the dishwasher thing, if I didn't do it correctly, I would get a stern lesson on how that goes. I did a lot of chores. They had me do, and I'm sure they were trying to teach me how to be responsible and things like that. But, doing that is a good thing. But when someone is learning how to do something and they make a mistake, I don't think the best reaction is to shame them and say, well, what are you thinking? That's what he would say. Come on now, think about what you're doing. That's what he would say. If I made a mistake, I said, come on now, think about what you're doing. You're smarter than that. Well, I might be smarter than that, but the implication is that I'm not being smart in what I just did that wasn't the way you want it done. The biggest thing was he would have me wash his vehicles, So I would, wash the vehicle, get it all done, and he would always find a spot that I missed somehow. Well, what's this? And point at it. What's this? What are you doing? So that happened quite frequently. We weren't talking necessarily about how we were punished, but Glenn mentioned that. I didn't get the wooden hangers, but I was paddled with all kinds of things, pretty much whatever's laying around. Ping pong paddle. For a while, when we lived with my grandparents, they had like a thick yardstick kind of thing, and it was particularly made. I forget what it said on it, but it had a graphics of a child being paddled. I think it was probably just a novelty thing, but it hurt. And one time my dad actually came to school to punish me for something that I did, and he was in his work vehicle. So there was just a piece of wood laying around in the back of his van that he punished me with. The worst, though, was when the school back then, they had corporal punishment at the school. So if you did something bad in school, they had this paddle, and it was probably maybe 3 inches thick. And it had etched into it the Board of Education. And I remember that because I'd seen it more than once. being paddled and stuff. I was rebellious, just like Glenn. It probably wasn't in exactly the same ways, but I was labeled a strong-willed child from the Dr. Dobson books, and I was strong-willed. Now, back then, I thought that was a positive thing. I didn't think it as being negative, but I don't think my parents thought it was positive, and I don't think it was intended to be positive. It basically means someone that doesn't go by their rules and things like that. And, as I got older, it was grounding. They would take away TV privileges, as I've mentioned before, and things like that. But my parents didn't react well when I made a mistake, and I made a lot of them in their mind. My mom's reaction, she very rarely did the spanking part. If I did something, she would use guilt and shame, and she was very demonstrative with her body language and slamming cupboards and stuff. That's how she reacted when I made a mistake. And it was even little things. It was big things and little things. It didn't seem to matter which. The reaction was always, in my opinion, way over the top. I certainly didn't get what Glenn is describing, which was allowing a child. I love the way he described it. Allowing a child to make mistakes and helping them through that and showing them a better way and not having to use guilt and shame to do that. I think that's the healthy way to teach a child how to learn from their mistakes. Now, as an adult, we'll get to this later, how I deal with it as an adult. Fortunately, I've been able to work through these things. And when I make a mistake, in the past, I would have to struggle because, as Jen was saying, after a while, you don't have to continue to do that to a child. They end up doing it to themselves. They learn to beat themselves up. So you don't even have to do it anymore. They punish themselves. They're self-punishing. And that's the way that works. So that was my long-winded answer to that. Some people in the chat answered. We go back up, scroll back up the chat. Bobby Meyer says, I got beat with a wiffle ball bat. Fun times. Well, that's not fun. Wiffle ball bat. That's pretty bad. John Don says, early on, I got the belt, but I deserved the wrench, he said. I don't know about that, Rob or John. Let's see, who else? Nathan Gruber says, my dad still says you can't be an idiot all your life, but what point are you on? But at what point are you not an idiot? Wow. Let's see. Janet says, I had constant fear at home. I think it was why I have always held my breath. All right.
Whoa. I've done that too, Janet. Yeah. To remind myself to breathe.
Yeah, that's
so
rough.
Weird.
Mr. Nas says, and stressed out for all those stuff that happened. Okay, I think that was in answer to something else. Sorry about that. Nathan continues, my dad would always say, if I didn't shape up, mom and dad would get a divorce or I would be put in a home. Wow, that's not great. Tony's Coffee House says, I can't think of anything from my childhood. Broken home, so never had stability. Well, that's still not great. To broken home and not have stability, that's not fun either. Let's see. Sorry, guys. It's just, fortunately, we have a lot of people in the chat, so I had to scroll way up. So if I missed your comment, please forgive me. I am trying to find everything. Okay. I just want to say really quickly, we have like 13. We just had 15 a minute ago. People in the chat, and we really, really appreciate that, double digits. So thank you guys for coming. We really do love it when you guys come into the chat, and especially when you respond. Okay, so I don't see anyone new that came in. All right, there we go. Okay, so the follow-up question then is, how did it make you feel about yourself afterwards? So the question we just asked is, how did your parents react when you made a mistake? Next question is, how did it make you feel about yourself afterwards? And we'll start with Jen. Jen, how did it make you feel about yourself afterwards, after you were made to feel like it was all your fault when you made a mistake?
Yeah, I think I kind of went into that before about how it sort of snowballed.
Right.
I know, like, I didn't mention this, or in the write-up I did, but being spanked and then left alone in a room to cry. And a lot of times I fell asleep while, you cry yourself and you just fall asleep. And I would wake up in the morning and everything was sort of back to normal.
Yeah.
Kind of like it didn't happen.
Right.
And there was no discussion and talk afterwards. And it was interesting, like, of course I began to think that was normal. I grew up thinking this. But then when I, started having friends that were having kids, hear stories from friends about how parents, dealt with them. I'd hear stories about how, parents would sit down with their kids afterwards and, with them and talk them through why there was this, what the child did, because the times where I didn't know what I had done, so because it wasn't like, there's one thing where you actually disobey your parents or get caught lying or whatever, and you get punished, and it's evident as to what did that brought upon the punishment. But there's times I didn't know what I had done. So I kind of, the brunt of this punishment was left in this like question area. What did I do? And that ended up kind of culminating in me feeling like I couldn't do anything right. Yeah, so it just the whole thing didn't really leave me in a place that made me feel very good about myself. I just kind of came to expect from myself that I was just going to be a failure, just going to always made mistakes, and that it was never okay. So it's sort of a self-defeating belief about oneself.
Wow, goodness gracious. Sorry to hear that, but I completely understand. The way our parents treat us can be something, as you say in the write-up, it can be something that you have carried around with you for a very long time, and then when you're an adult, you have to figure out, how to mitigate that, how to work that out for yourself, so you don't continue carrying the weight of that you feel like everything's your fault all the time.
Yeah.
So that's hard yards, as my mom used to say. So let's go to Marisa now. How did it make you feel about yourself afterwards, the way that your parents dealt with you making mistakes, Marisa?
Well, being treated with the old-fashioned guilt and shame, it didn't really exactly build up a lot of confidence. It really made me go into myself and keep to myself a lot. I didn't really come out of my shell until my theater department got revived in high school, and I started, participating in that. So for most of my childhood, I didn't really like to make a whole lot of noise. I really kind of like to just keep to myself. I spent a lot of times entertaining myself in my room, outside. The good times were good with the adults when they were being positive and supportive, but a lot of the time it was a lot of snark, a lot of sarcasm, a lot of personal insult, a lot of things they would justify as just kidding around and just joking, when you know darn good and well that really was not the intention. And narcissists are famous for doing things like that, accusing you of being too sensitive, and when they're really the ones who are out of line.
Right.
How dare you not take to their insult? So yeah, I enjoyed spending time, reading, listening to music, singing, just keeping to myself quite a bit is what how I coped with it.
Sure.
And Bobby, I loved when I'd get to see Bobby, and she didn't live too far from me. But then, we'd go hole up somewhere in her room or in my room or outside or somewhere.
Right.
I got to be at about the age of 13 when I realized that my folks just weren't listening. That they just didn't care. That I was more like a non, like an NPC, a non-playing character.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
I
really
do.
didn't
Yeah.
matter
Right.
what I said or what I did. Nobody was really taking it seriously unless I did something wrong, and then it was just all on, like, Simon LeBon. So
Okay.
and Michelle Kwan and King Don all rolled into one. So yeah, I look back on some good times and happy times, but the worst of the worst, the guilt, the shaming, the insults, whole lot of insults, that was a terrible time. And when you're young, you can't think to stand up for yourself, and when you're by yourself and you're the only kid, who in the hell's going to stand up for you? When you
Right.
have a whole group of adults coming at you, talk about triangulation.
Right. Wow.
And they're the adults, and you're taught to respect them, and you're taught that what they say is the truth.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Right. So that makes one led to believe. I'm not saying that's true, but when you're hit with that kind of treatment and propaganda, and I'll call it propaganda, is you start to believe it. You start to believe, wow, I really must be fill in the blank of whatever their insult du jour happened to be, or whatever, And it's not like anybody's perfect. I knew, I wasn't perfect, and everybody makes mistakes, but mistakes were met with criticism and punishment, whether it was mental or otherwise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So there you go there.
Thank you, Marisa. Appreciate you sharing that. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to Glenn now. Glenn, how your parents treated you and dealt with your rebellion and when you made a mistake. How did those things make you feel about yourself afterwards?
Didn't really make me feel much at all. I just spent my time in the majority as being the introvert and in the minority plotting revenge.
Oh.
Like I would go to school and get myself kicked out and be an asshole, and then they'd have to go get called up to the school and told what their son was. He was a bastard, whatever he was, He was this, he was that, and they'd have to get all stressed out because he was uncontrollable, and I'm just sitting there smiling to myself.
Wow.
I was very naughty.
Yeah.
Very naughty indeed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Glenn.
I didn't really who'd had time to worry about what was, did I feel like I'd been shamed and blamed? What? And that wasn't even an agenda item.
Right.
I was
wow. Okay.
Well,
thank you. Want to say hello really quick to Pammy Clyde. Welcome, Pammy, and also our friend
Pammy.
There you go. And also our friend Andrew. We love you guys. Thank you for coming by. And before I give my answer, I just want to remind everyone to go over to Nez Lover's channel if you haven't already and watch the broadcast from last night. So it was the three of us, Jen and Marisa, were doing art wonderfully as usual. And we were talking about truther stuff over there on the channel. So that is available for you to go on Nez Lover's channel and give that a watch and a listen if you have a chance. It was a good time, and we're continuing to do those on Saturday nights. The time varies. I think one night we did it at 10 or 9 or something. So just consult your local newspaper for the times on that. So welcome everyone in the chat. By the way, and the only reason I'm mentioning this is because, I think the most we ever had on TSL, I think we got up to 22 one time. Right now we're fluctuating between 15 and 17 people that are actually in the chat or watching while we're live. So thank you guys again for coming. We appreciate that. Nez put the link to the broadcast from last night into the chat. So after the broadcast that we're doing now is over, please do yourself a favor and watch that. These ladies are so talented with their art, and they just do something new every time. And I just am amazed and love being a part of that, watching what they do. So there you go. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Jason.
Oh, absolutely. So how did it make me feel about myself afterwards? Well, that's interesting because I had anger, and, Glenn mentioned, plotting revenge. I don't think I plotted revenge very often, but I realized as I'm thinking about it that it didn't make my behavior better. In fact, I kind of gave up. Like I felt like I couldn't, I could never do anything right. So why try? And my sister did the opposite. She has mentioned to me that she watched me get in trouble for my quote unquote rebellious ways. So she became the compliant child. She ended up doing everything the way that they wanted her to do it, and at least until she got into college, and she acted out a little bit when she got to college, got away from home a little bit. But pretty much she took the other route. And I've struggled with that my whole life of just not trying. I can't measure up. It's all my fault, and I can't do anything the way anyone wants me to do it. So why am I even bothering with this? So I would feel angry. I would feel like I was a loser. I did feel like everything was my fault in the way that they reacted to everything. And I pretty much gave up. And that took me a long time to get out of that as well. So the feeling like everything was my fault, and even trying to do anything. I did do better, like at jobs and things like that. When it was someone that wasn't my parent, I would try harder. But still, in the back of my mind, when I would screw up at work at a job, I had to fight through all that self-talk, that incriminating self-talk that we have when we grow up with parents like that, who just seem to just not handle things in a positive, healthy way. So that's my answer to that, short and sweet. And we just had Christina and Son Ghost Squad pop into
That's
the chat.
one of my peeps. Christina, hello, my dear.
Wow.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Christina. You are very, very welcome. So thank you for joining us here. Glenn, 17 folks in the chat. It goes up down. I think sometimes people come in and they pop out, and then someone else comes in. So it's fluctuating between 15 and 17. So, gosh, I'm thrilled by that. So again, thank you guys for coming in. Scully's House of Thrillers just popped in. Scully, the what is his tagline?
The author who reads to you. Hi, Scully.
The
I love you,
author who reads to you. Yeah.
Hey,
He said it just like that too. The author who reads
to you. I was trying to imitate him a little bit. I probably can't, but I was giving it a good college try. So welcome, Scully. We're glad that you're here. So thank you for stopping in. We appreciate you as well. Yeah, so go give Scully a listen. He does a similar thing. I've had the idea to read things on YouTube for a long time, but I never did anything about it. But I am doing something about it now. And Scully, I actually met him on one of Peanuts episodes, and I didn't really. The first time I met him, I just didn't really understand what he was doing. He kept doing this, like on the microphone. I didn't get it. I get it now. It's an ASMR thing. And I went over and listened to several things on his channel. So he does have a channel, and he does read things over there. So please give him a listen. if you care to. You can click on his link in the chat. And anyone that has a channel, Marisa does a really good job of promoting other people's channels, and we like to try to stay focused as much as we can on here. But I definitely don't mind popping links in the chat or anything like that. So not everyone has a wrench, but if Marisa, if you know someone's link and you want to pop that, I would appreciate you doing that in the chat. That's not an issue for me at all. So, okay. All right. So everyone answered that question. How did it make you feel about yourself afterwards? The next question is, what does a person do in order to find out if their childhood experiences are still affecting them in their adult life? So all these things that we're talking about, whether it's your fault or not, how does a person figure that out if they're still being affected by these things from their childhood? Let's start with you, Jen. How do you think a person can figure that out, whether that's still affecting them in their adult life?
I think being introspective, looking at it.
Yeah.
That sounds simple, but I think I know for me, I spent the majority of my life ignoring it and not looking at it. So here I am, turned 42.
Right.
And in the last 4 years, well, maybe 3, been sort of kind of peeling the layers back and trying to find out, okay, why do I think these things? The other thing too is, I don't know about anybody else, but for the majority of my life, I've had negative thoughts running through my mind and not even noticing.
Yeah.
Like they're just there and they affect what I'm doing or not doing and affect how I'm feeling. So when I was able to just pray and ask God to help me kind of slow down and look at the thoughts and counter them, with my own, counter them with, like, not that there are other people's thoughts in my head. That sounds crazy. But, just negative thoughts like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Just
Right.
that for an example, to counter in your head, or even say out loud, no, I'm not stupid. Like, and so you're fixing it in a way. But yeah, being introspective and looking at it, and it, I think maybe sometimes people get afraid that if they look at it, it's going to be really painful, or maybe they'll get stuck there. 'Cause that's never the goal either, to pull this painful stuff apart and get stuck in that place.
Right.
My intention of looking at it is to eventually get past it. It's not to spend my entire rest of my life looking at it and talking about it per se,
Right.
beating a dead horse. It's a way as a stepping stone to counter it, what was said and done and how it made me, the things that made me believe about myself, and then counteract it with the truth, my truth, God's truth.
Right.
Past it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, let's ask Marisa. Marisa, what does a person do? How do we figure out whether our childhood experiences are still affecting our adult life? What do you think?
I think the way we see ourselves hopefully changes once you are out of, if you grew up in a negative or toxic environment. If you were ever told that you weren't good at something or couldn't do something, and then you find yourself wanting to do those things and succeeding, I think that's a very strong way to positively influence not only how you see yourself, but how others see you as well.
Sure.
I've accomplished a lot. I can think of many things, including, where I've gone with my artwork, particularly. My family knew I had artistic talent, but they were not ones to cheer me on towards pursuing going to art school or having a show or anything that you would do to encourage someone,
sure,
in that particular field.
Sure.
And I think I've gone above and beyond anything they may have ever expected me to do in that respect. And another way I can think of that my way I've seen myself has changed is having children. I used to be afraid of the idea of having children, and really I didn't want to bring kids into the world if the way I was brought up and what I used to think was normal was the way to go. But being free of the toxic and the narcissists and the abuse, being free of all of the negative and being able to function on my own as an adult and making my own choices and my own decisions.
Hello?
That made all the difference in the world. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Okay. All right. So I think life experience, just standing on your own and allowing yourself to make mistakes, but not guilting and shaming yourself, but getting back up and learning from those things and moving forward. Not being afraid to, the way you've done it for years or the way your family's done it for years, it just didn't work, to go ahead and try a different way.
Right.
And the way I bring up my kids is just completely different. They don't have, thank God, they don't have the negative components and people in their lives that I had to go through.
Right.
So, I mean, not that they don't face challenges. Certainly they do. But there's no guilting and shaming and triangulation and all the stuff that I had to go through. So thank God for that.
Right.
Just living life and experiencing. Don't carry that negative baggage forward, and you'll find yourself free to move forward and do much better things.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Marissa. I appreciate you sharing. All right. How about you, Glenn? What does a person do? I mean, however your childhood was, I know you have some perspective or opinion on this. How does any person, try to figure out if their childhood experiences, whatever their parents did to them or society or whatever, how do they figure out if it's still affecting them in their adult life? What's your opinion on that?
Pretty easy. When you make horrendous mistakes, it's a pretty good indicator.
Right.
Stuff things right up, where you have to go back and think, what on earth was I doing?
Right.
You've really got to say that number one is, as Jen said, introspection.
Yeah.
Number two is get help.
Yeah.
I think each person has a pivotal point or points in their life, and like a lot of people, it would be divorce or broken situations or a major health issue. Something that's made them be reflective.
Right.
I don't know if you don't have that you just don't drift along. I mean, I don't know what is the catalyst for making each person get to that stage. I think it's just a very different scenario for each person.
Right.
So for me, it was having my son taken away, a divorce, meeting a range of fantastic people, having support from my mum and dad, having a range of new experiences that opened my eyes that the world really didn't work the way I thought it did.
Right.
I did the therapy. I did the therapy because I thought, okay, if I've got major codependence issues, which has been role modeled. Now I want someone else as a professional to pull me to pieces, and it's going to hurt. I knew it was going to be hurtful, or painful, maybe is a better word. Pull me to pieces, and so that I can basically get more information. Is there anything there that I need to be aware of that I'm not? And there were things. I mean, there's always things that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So that was extremely beneficial. And the major thing is that, and I think Jen mentioned it, I just said, look, if I don't drop all this stuff, I'll never be able to move on.
Yeah.
So I made a very conscious decision. I'm finished with it. I've moved on, and I don't need to reflect on it anymore. Unless it's just occasional, like on TSL. But I've just moved on, and life's good. Just keep going forward. There's a lot of things I don't need to understand because I don't. What's the point? I don't need to have a PhD in understanding I'd rather have a PhD and living my life right now.
Yeah.
That
Good
sounds
point.
good.
Yeah.
See, it's irrelevant. It's gone. It's past. It's over. It's done. It's finished. Forget it.
Yeah.
That experience has assisted you to get to where you are today. Even like Jen said, mum, dad, or dad was doing this and that. It doesn't matter now. You're a new person today. The more that you allow that to just keep coming back to haunt you, or the more you hurt yourself. What's the point? Get over it. You know I'm going to say that because I just say,
Oh, yeah. It was
it's
coming.
easy. It's easy. Just tell yourself you're not going to do that crap anymore.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
it's hard, but and you probably feel that it's directed personally. I just can't do this. I need to keep going back and trying to understand every little thing that happened. All I know is that the people in my life were kind, generous, loving people. They did their absolute best for me. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well,
that's a long answer.
No, that's good. I love your long answers. I think you have a lot to say. So when you take a little bit more time to go through something, I think it's beneficial. So thank you, Glenn.
And the other thing is, you can't. How do you love people in your life if you're being dragged down by the past?
I mean, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to mention that on a couple of occasions. I wanted to get to this point, so it seems like it's the perfect time to mention that. So, I agree with what Glenn's saying. I think we can spend too much time if we're stuck in the past. But I agree with Jen, and in my opinion, how are you going to figure out if these things are affecting you as an adult? How are you going to figure out how to move past it? I mean, it's one thing to say, "Oh, just we'll get over it," but I think it can be a little bit more difficult than just deciding to get over it. You have to figure out what caused the injury in the first place, what caused the trauma in order to get past it. Now, there's a lot of disagreement on this point. I mean, there are even therapists who disagree. There are therapists that don't look at all the past. There are therapists that look too much into the past. Like Freud, for instance, everything for him was all about the past. It was your mommy didn't treat you well. Your daddy didn't treat you well. You're in love with your mom. You want to kill your dad. All this ridiculous stuff. I think there is some truth to looking at the past for the purpose of moving past it. Jen mentioned, being able to look at yourself, to be able to know yourself well. I feel like we do have to look at our past experiences, but like anything else, there's a balance. You can spend too much time, as Glenn was saying, you can get caught in that place of just living in your past. Oh, and continuing to play the blame game, blaming your parents, blaming your school, blaming your older friends, being stuck in that place. Yeah, it can be overwhelming, and it can make you paralyzed and stagnant. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that if you're an adult, and as Glenn was saying, if you're making all these huge mistakes, or you're mucking up your life, being introspective can help you to figure out why you're in this place. But as I said, you can spend too much time doing that. I mean, I have met these people that all they do is blame their parents or blame other things for the reason why they behave like they do. That's not what we're suggesting. We're suggesting, or I'm suggesting, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I'm suggesting that being introspective, taking a good look at why you're behaving like you are, like alcoholics, for instance, a really good example. Alcoholics, why are you continuing to ruin your life by excessive drinking? You're if you're married and your wife or your husband is continually being hurt by your drinking and you're still doing it, you don't seem to be interested in quitting or cutting back. Why is that? Because usually there's a reason why people drink excessively. There's a reason why someone turns to drugs. There's a reason why they do get involved with gambling or overspending. There's reasons why people do these things. So figuring out why is helpful, in my opinion. I do agree that we can spend too much time there. So, in answering the actual question, what does a person do to find out if their childhood experiences are still affecting them? I think everyone else answered that question. I can't really add much to that. I just wanted to address the spending too much time living in the past. I agree that we can do that. I just think that it is a good way. You have to figure out what caused the injury in the first place, in my opinion. And it's okay. People disagree on that point. That's totally fine. I think it's super important. Let me just check the chat real quick. Make sure no one answered. We want to say hello to Light of Christ. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. And we continue to stay right around 15 to 16. So, gosh, that's super exciting. Let's see. Just checking for comments. I don't see anything new. I know that Believe is kind of talking to Glenn and he's asking some good questions, but I won't focus on that too much. But gosh. Okay, so Believe says triggers happen. You flash back to the past to where you sedate in the same sedation you've been sedating in because you haven't dwelt with those demons on how to I think it means dealt with those demons on how to live with those triggers and not sedate. Yeah, I mean that's very true. I believe sedation. That's what I mentioned with alcoholism or anything else a person does to deal with their life, their trauma, their injury. And I think we all do it to a certain extent. It just, some people go a little bit further with it than others, for sure. So if you're not happy with your life, in my opinion, the best way to determine that is to look at your childhood. Look at if you're aware of the reason why you do all the things you do, you don't have to spend a lot of time in the past. You can just move on from it like that. I liked Glenn's answer about, getting help, there's groups that you can join, the other people that have similar experiences that can help you walk through these things. There's Facebook groups, there's YouTube channels. We've mentioned a lot of those and we'll continue to do that. There's a lot of things a person can do to get out of that. Okay, so next question. Do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult? This can be related to, if everything's your fault, but just in general, does anyone in the chat have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult? It's something from your childhood or from anything else. I'll go first on this one. I've talked a lot about that. My parents were very restrictive, my diet and who I hung out with, and they would tell me that my mom didn't like any friend I had, growing up. She would find something wrong with all of them. My dad wasn't as vocal about that. He did tell me, and I keep bringing this up, but my friend John or / Rob, he called John Driftwood. That was his name for Rob. I think Rob was in here one night and he said, well, back then I was Driftwood. So I guess my dad was temporarily right, but they were very judgmental of me and my choices, as I stated. So I carried a lot of these thoughts about who I was as a person into my adult life, and it's taken me a long time to rewrite the programming and the indoctrination. one of the beliefs was that, I was just always going to fail with my health and not eating the right foods. And it's something I've struggled with for a long time. My mom told me when I was a teenager that, being overweight runs in both families, both my dad's family and my mom's family. And she told me that I just was always going to have to struggle with my weight. And I made it true. I have looked at this quite a bit. And that was one big thing, one belief about myself that was given to me by someone else that I held on to for a long time. Now, I don't believe that about myself anymore, but it is definitely a difficult thing as you get older to get over things like that. So that's just one example. I've been talking a lot, so I'm not going to go on any more than that. But let's hear from Jen. Jen, do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult?
The only thing that I'm working through at the moment, it's no longer super buried, is just fear of failure. It's something that's just it's been so ingrained in me, fear of making mistakes, and then it just paralyzing me. I'll share that Maurice has been just such a blessing to me because she's really encouraged me with art and inviting me onto her art streams. It's just gotten me to sit down and just do something. And a couple times it's been a little bit of a struggle for me because of those thoughts around in my head, and I have to kind of counteract them because there was such negative feedback and response, like external response around me when I would do art in the past, that it started this thing that I loved, that I just excelled at and loved, had all of this negative crap attached to it. So then I started, what's the word? I just started, dag nabbit, I can't think of the word. Associating, being creative with negative.
Yeah.
So working out of that has been a really big deal. And that's the last thing because it has in the past bled into everything. I mean, in your life, you're constantly trying new things. You're constantly doing things that you don't know how to do and learning new things. And so if you're a person that's afraid of making mistakes and feeling like an idiot, it freezing you up to where you're like, well, I just won't try anything new. That's a horrible way to exist. How boring too.
Yeah.
Wow. So working through that has been huge, and it's kind of like for me the last frontier. So I'm like, woohoo! And every little I don't know what's up with my brain this evening. Even if I have these small victories, they're huge to me because it's kind of laying brick by brick, getting out of that hole,
Sure.
So
thank you, Jen.
It's good stuff.
Appreciate you sharing that. How about you, Marisa? Do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult?
Not anymore. I got set free from all of that.
Oh, fantastic.
Sweet.
Everything that I was, and I don't just mean from growing up, but just from the negative people along the way in young adulthood as well. And even from people here on, later in life.
Right.
I've learned that I am not what the negative people have had to say. Now, that's not saying, again, that I'm perfect. Nobody's perfect. I know my faults and my shortcomings, and we all have them. Right. But I've learned that I can still be and do and wonderful things without being held back by any of the criticism, any of the antagonism, any of the slander, the negative, the harassment. None of it. None of that means anything. Like Glenn says, just, so what? Just get over it and move on.
Yeah.
Let that negative stuff just fall right off you. And just you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. And if you're a person of faith, if you believe in Jesus Christ, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And I'm living proof right here today.
Right.
So thank God I don't have anything else holding me back. Do I, have a lot of money? No. Do I have a lot of fame? No. But
Yeah.
I don't need those things, and I don't even necessarily want those things. All I want is to do the best I can, do the best I can for my children, and do the best I can for people that come across my path.
Yeah.
So I think I'm doing a lot better than I've ever done. I feel better than I ever have.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 51 and I feel top of my game. So
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
Woo!
What a positive.
It's infectious.
Yeah, that is in fact that's awesome. Thank you, Marisa. Appreciate you sharing that. Okay, again, guys, we just hit the 20 people actively listening to the live broadcast. So we haven't gotten there in a long time. So I wish I had some horn to blow or something to do for that. But there you go. Thank you. Gosh, we so appreciate you guys stopping in. Thank you for bringing us up to 20 people actually watching the live broadcast. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. So moving forward. Okay. Let's ask Glenn. Glenn, do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back as an adult? He asks, expecting the answer no.
No.
I like the pause. So dramatic.
The dramatic pause. Yes. Well done, Glenn.
He had us in suspense. Is he going to say yes? No.
I realize if I carry that garbage, I'm not going to be able to have constructive, healthy, loving relationships. So just drop it off the planet and kick it to the gutter, the curb.
Yeah.
And we've all got baggage, but we don't need excess.
Right.
Nope.
And that is excess.
Yeah.
If you think you're not good enough, you won't be.
Ooh, I like that.
Amen, brother. Amen.
I like that. If you think you aren't good enough, you won't be. That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So, that's good advice. Be careful what you think about yourself, and if you're thinking negative things, stop. I mean, it seems easy if you're thinking negative things about yourself. I mean, there's no value in that. There's no value in being down on yourself. There's no value in negative self-talk. It doesn't help you at all. I really, honestly cannot think of one positive thing about that sort of thinking pattern.
Yeah.
I just can't.
And there's a difference. There's a difference between critical, honest self-evaluation and introspection and beating yourself over the head with garbage and nonsense from critical people, from negative people, from abusive people. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
And I'll also say there was a time where Glenn's comment would have really pissed me off, because there was a time where I didn't feel like I could just turn it off.
Yeah.
It hasn't been until I've dug into it that I have been able to turn it off and let it go. So I think it's difficult for some people that were programmed to think certain things about themselves to the point where it was so organic in them. It was like breathing.
Yeah.
And if they don't know what's going on and why that's there, I've met people that have talked about that, where it seems impossible to shut it off. Yeah. It's like, how do you even do that? And some people have talked about like affirmations, positive affirmations, which I believe do help. But I also think there is a key for some people, maybe not everybody, but a key to look at where the root of it is and pull that effing root out. Throw it into the oven.
Yeah.
Make some pumpkin pie.
Gotcha.
Something.
Make some pumpkin pie. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Now I want pumpkin pie. Thank you.
I know. It's so delicious.
Okay. We just had our friend preliminal.
Preliminal. I said it wrong for 3 years. Hi, Patrick.
Minimal. Yeah, welcome, Patrick. We're glad that you're here. I'm just blown away at how many people are here tonight. Gosh, goodness gracious. That's just amazing. All right. So that one was do you have any beliefs about yourself that you feel hold you back? Okay, so everyone answered that one, and we got some really good answers on that question. We really dragged that one out a little bit on that for good reason, though. Okay, so the next question is, why do you think they are there, in reference to the beliefs that you hold as an adult, or where do those beliefs come from? Why do you think they are there, or where do those beliefs come from? And I'm gonna model this in my answer to the question. Of course, you guys can answer any way you want, but I'll go first. I think that the beliefs that I have held are there because, in my opinion, your parents put all of their failures, their fallen dreams, their fears, their worries onto you. Children are like sponges when they're in the development stage. They pick up on things, even if it's not something that's said to them. They watch everything and they pick up on it. And a lot of times they put it on themselves. And it's really easy to do that when your parents, whether they know it or not, they're putting those things on you. For instance, someone in the chat, I think it was Christina, was saying that she was wanted to be an actress and also to write books. And her parents were not encouraging in either of those ventures. I had a similar experience. I was involved in acting, and my parents were very supportive as long as I just did church plays or did school plays where I didn't have to drive anywhere or do anything that they didn't want me to do. But I've told the story before that when I turned 17, I got an acting gig with the Children's Theater of Charlotte, which was a big deal at the time. And when I got the role, I came back home and I was so excited to tell my parents that I got cast in a role. And they were very disappointed and said that they didn't think I would make it. That's why that they were sort of supportive until I actually got chosen. So that was a difficult moment. So I know that my dad, his dream was to be a professional gospel singer, and he actually did follow that dream, but he just never could quite reach the level of celebrity that he wanted to reach. So that was, I guess, in his mind, in some ways, a failure. And so he was not encouraging to me about anything I wanted to follow, or somewhat encouraging, like up to a point. My dad would say, "Oh, you've got a great voice. You should be in radio," but very limited as to, like when I would have an idea of doing a YouTube channel. None of my family has been encouraging to me about any of the YouTube channels that I've done. They've been encouraging to get into radio, but radio is dead as far as being a DJ or, I'm sure there are people out there that have been doing this for years that, got pigeonholed into a certain, job, and they're doing well like that. But it's just not, radio's not what it used to be, is all. Everything's online now, so there are things you can do online. But my point is, I believe that parents put their own failures, their own worries, their own fears onto their children. Again, whether they know it or not, that's what happens. And so they're there because of that reason. And until we do something about it, until we work on it ourselves, they can continue to plague us. So those beliefs oftentimes come from our parents, our family members. It wasn't just my parents. It was grandparents. They put some stuff on you, uncles, cousins, aunts, anyone in your family. It just seems to me like your family of origin, not in every case, but your family of origin can be more damaging to you than anyone outside the family. That's my opinion. And I'm certainly open to anyone disagreeing with that, but that's my experience. So that's my answer. Let's go to Glenn. We're going to do reverse order this time. We'll go to Glenn first. Glenn, why do you think these beliefs that people hold on to are there, and where do those beliefs come from, in your opinion?
Can you just define beliefs, please?
What people accept to be true about themselves. Like I gave the example that my mom told me that I would always have to struggle with my weight, and I believed it. Whether I should have or shouldn't have, I believed it. It was a lie that I believed and carried on into my adulthood. That's just an example.
I think you tend to, in the early times, you tend to believe what is told to you by your family.
Yeah.
And then I think the sphere widens out because you become more, there's more peers. I think you take that in. I think, I'm not sure at what age, but some people would be different. At some point, you're going to question those beliefs in certain beliefs and role models and attitudes that have come your way. The question is, how intently are you going to question them and modify what you've been told to suit who you really are, or how much are you just going to say, okay, well, they must be right.
Yeah.
This is who I am. So I think, once again, it's a very personal experience. It's a tough question, but I think initially it has to come from other people.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's where it's going to set the scene, or that's the stage play.
Yeah,
that's where you're on the stage and there's other people telling you stuff.
Yep. Thank you, Glenn.
I'm just going to say, well, my mum and dad were God believers, and they used to send me to Sunday school, and I just said at quite a young age, this is rubbish, and I wasn't. So I didn't mean, I wasn't picking on that specifically, but it's a very clear thing where at 11 years of age, I'm saying this is just, I don't agree with what I've been told. This is just not me. So I think all of us do that in life. I think we're still doing it as adults all the time, evaluating.
Wow.
Evaluating, trying to make life better and easier.
Yeah.
Keep the stress out. If you've stressed, I would hope that you're evaluating why you are stressed and what's been the influence that's led you to the stress, and trying to do something about it, because it's going to hurt you.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Great points.
Okay. Jen, how about you? Why do you think they're there? Where do they come from?
I think this answer fits. It was something that popped in my head as Glenn was talking. Sure. I really grew up and I don't know where this I have an idea of where it came from, but it's just interesting to look back and think, when did that start? Not that it really matters because it was there, but just assuming and believing that other people knew me better than I did.
Right.
And so the things that I felt like were being said to me or shown to be me about myself, I took as Bible.
Sure.
And which kept me stuck, and so really and truly the past 4 years, I've been sort of getting to know myself and trust myself and trust my gut and truly settle into knowing who I am. Mm-hmm. And it's been very beneficial because, even recently, some things have come up that in the past would have really challenged me and shook me, to my core, and made me feel very unsteady, but it hasn't. I truly, truly have been on an amazing journey of discovering myself apart from anyone else, you know, and finding out who I am and who I believe I am.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's been a huge key as well.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right. Last but certainly not least, Marisa, what do you agree with what everyone else is saying, or do you have a different perspective? Where do these beliefs come from that we hold on to and we struggle with as an adult that we got from childhood?
I agree with what everybody else is saying, and where do these beliefs come from? That's one thing Sigmund Freud had right. A lot of those come from mother or the mother figure, or sometimes the father figure as well.
Right.
We get established pretty early. We're told what we can do, what we should be doing, what we ought not to do, and I really think that you don't get to break away from those things and learn the truth about yourself until you are free from those, whether it's proximity or you're just deciding to, I'm not going to build myself and see myself through other people's eyes and other people's expectations.
Right.
You really comes down to you dealing with you on your terms.
Yeah.
And again, with dealing with the introspection, there's a big difference between putting yourself down and taking yourself seriously and assessing yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an all negative experience. You can acknowledge your faults, but you can move forward. And if you've been doing something the same way or the way that you were taught, and like I said, if it's not working for you, then you have a moment in your adulthood, hopefully, where you're free from those negative influences and you can try things a different way, try it a new way.
Sure.
Try, or even something that you always wanted to do, but were told that you shouldn't do or you just couldn't do. You're not going to know unless you try.
Right.
True enough.
Yeah.
You can't lose that desire to keep on trying. Get up, dust yourself off, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Oh.
Us have a lot of trouble getting over things from our past, certainly.
Yeah.
And there is no shame in asking for help, whether it's an objective point of view from somebody who's a friend, someone who is a therapist, someone who shares the same faith as you. But there's a wealth of help to be had with just having someone else give you an objective view on who you are and where you've been, but how that can be a much more positive outlook.
Yeah.
You may have been through a lot of crap and be covered with a bunch of battle scars, but that doesn't mean you're going to die on the battlefield. That means you can still get back up, and it means you can heal.
Yes.
And it means move forward.
Wow. Beautiful. I agree
Absolutely
completely. Why you still, your heart still beats and blood still running through your veins and you still have breath, you have the opportunity to change whatever you do not like about your life or yourself.
Exactly.
Completely.
And you have to come to the point where you don't have anyone else to blame but you.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come back to the point where, okay, even who so and so did this and that. Okay, well, you can't go back in time with the technology that that we're allowed to have. We're not able to do that. Personally, I think they got that hidden somewhere. But till we have access to that, you can't go back in time and change anybody or anything.
Right.
All you can do is change you, your
Agreed.
thoughts, the way you perceive the world, and the way you want your life to unfold. And it doesn't have to hinge on what anybody else says, especially anybody negative, toxic, or abusive.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Marisa. That was great. All right. I'm going to read. Believe said in the chat, I have thus far learned that fear is the bondage that causes stress, to which I stay stagnant in negativity I realized I do have social anxiety that Cripps pointed out to me a few shows back. And then he continues, and I've been learning to attack those fearful negative thoughts and acknowledge who I really am underneath this BS. I just saw that while Marisa was answering, and I just wanted to share that because that's what we're talking about. Particularly the part of acknowledging who you really are underneath all the stuff that's covering you over. I have shared this concept. I believe that all people have positive and negative qualities in them. And if it's positive, the world has a way, in my opinion, of covering all the light, all the goodness, covering it up with other BS, as Believe said in the chat. It's just the perfect description of that. And then as adults, we have the opportunity to uncover all this crap. And in order to uncover it, you have to know what it is you're uncovering. So again, it's not to stay in it, but to uncover it. So Believe, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. I agree completely. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, you do have the opportunity to get past it, to uncover it, to move forward. And that's one of the main reasons why we're doing these broadcasts. We all of us here on the panel, we've had our own struggles, we've had our own difficulties, and we know that other people have had the same. It may not be exactly what each of us have experienced, but we've experienced some things, and we're all works in progress. We're still working through things, except maybe Glenn. Glenn's perfect the way he is. He's not working through anything, maybe. But the rest of us are all working through things, and we're trying to improve ourselves, as a lot of people in the chat, I'm sure, are trying to improve themselves and have a better quality of life. And by being introspective, by looking at what you've been through and coming to this final conclusion, as Marisa was just saying, you don't have to stay there. You don't. And as Believe was saying, acknowledging who you are underneath all that BS, who you truly are, and not who your parents told you, who your teachers told you, who your quote unquote friends told you, or anyone else. Discovering who you want to be as a person and chasing after that. I think it's extremely important.
Agreed.
Just real quick, Andrew says, really, my life is a constant anxiety attack, and my continually attempting to hide that and seem normal. Wow, Andrew. I don't know how I would live if I was under it. I don't like anxiety the way it feels at all. So if it feels like it's a constant anxiety attack, that's incredible. Did you ever get in touch with Glenn? I know Glenn's got a lot of stuff going on, but I definitely would encourage you, if you haven't done it already, to just know that he's busy a lot right now. But I would definitely encourage you to follow through with that if you haven't already. All right. But I'm sorry that you're going through that, and I know a little bit about how anxiety feels, and I don't like it at all. So definitely we'll be praying for you in that area. Okay. All right. So there's two more questions left. They're kind of related a little bit, but the next question in the lineup is it your fault? So all these things that we're talking about, the whole reason for the topic tonight is saying it's not your fault. So these questions that Jen has asked have led up to this second to last question. Is it your fault? Jen, is it your fault?
I was going to say, I'd like to go first. Okay. So I think the things that happened to us in childhood are not. I think they're not our fault. We were children. Right. We were dependents, on the adults around us. And it's normal. for kids to look to the adults in our lives around us to sort of mirror back to us what we're supposed to do, what kind of people we're supposed to be, all that stuff. But when we get into adulthood, it is our responsibility. I won't say fault per se,
Right.
but it's our responsibility to discover who we are, discover who we want to be, change, grow, learn.
Right.
So that's my answer.
Okay. Well, sure.
Oh, and I'll add that it's our responsibility to, because here's the thing: like if you're trying to just let it go and move on, and some people might disagree, without dealing with what happened and even just looking at it and
Right.
recognizing what was going on, I do believe the body keeps the score. I believe that those kind of traumas, they stay in us if they're not dealt with, and
Yeah.
they come out in all kinds of ways. So I think there's a process that has to happen when it comes to, instead of just letting it go, quote unquote, and stuffing, what was done and not understanding it to a degree, in order to move on. I don't think it's actually letting go.
Right.
I think it's going to come out in other ways. That's just my opinion.
Well,
So,
thank you, Jan. I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that. I agree with you completely. I don't think I could have said it any better. Wow. Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. You nailed it. Okay, Glenn, is it your fault?
What? Why are you asking me that again? I already told you 3 times.
All right, Marisa.
Not my fault. It's my responsibility. It's the same deal. Forget the fault.
The same answer.
Just take your responsibility for your part in anything. Own it, as the Americans would say. Yeah. What's that? What's that noise?
I don't know.
Oh, sorry. I was spraying the pan. I'm making chicken while y'all are chatting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's like hissing.
Chicken do more than one thing at once.
Chicken.
Look at me.
Has Crip's been singing for his supper, Jan, has he?
No, that was my stomach.
See?
It's got a deep voice.
You owned it.
Feed me.
Feed me, Seymour.
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Not disappointed by the humor in your answer. Marisa, what do you think? Is it your fault, Marisa?
Oh, I thought you were asking, is it Glenn's fault? Yes, it's all Glenn's fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Everything's my fault. I can take
Oh,
it.
no, it's
He's
all
putting
my
his hand
fault, too. You can't own that all. Do it over. Is it your fault for being hurt, for being abused, for being cruelly treated, despised, neglected, fill in the blank of all the negative BS that you had shoveled on you from whatever source, from childhood to this point right here and now? It is not your fault that those things happen to you.
Right.
But if you refuse to deal with those things,
right,
and realize that you are not made up of all of that negative and you can decide to move forward, then it is your fault. If you're going to stay in a place of shame and blame and ridicule, then it's your own damn fault for not wanting to get up and move on away from that place.
Yeah.
So there you go. And it's Glenn's fault. Okay.
Just to make that clear.
Just so everybody knows. Just so everybody knows it's Glenn's fault.
Oh, I'm overwhelmed. It really, actually, I'm not feeling it. I've let it go already.
I love you, Glenn.
Okay. My answer, is it my fault? No. I agree with what everyone else says. I stick with my earlier answer as far as I believe things are put on us by other people. And then as we become adults, You have a choice to make as to whether you're going to continue allowing yourself to be covered up by other people's fears, worries, their fallen dreams, their expectations of the way life should have been but wasn't. All of that is your responsibility to do something about it. A child can't do that. A child can't possibly. Maybe there's some genius child somewhere that can understand that parents are doing this or other people are putting their stuff on them. I think in some ways, kids have a certain knowledge to that a little bit. Like when they have brothers and sisters and the brother or sister is trying to take their toy away, they know something bad has happened to them. They know that their sibling is doing something they shouldn't do. That's pretty clear. But we look up to our parents, as Glenn was alluding to earlier, that these are the people that supposedly care for you. They care about you. They feed you. They change your diapers. They teach you how to tie your shoes and look both ways before crossing the street. I mean, we get everything initially if we have parents. I know some people were born in they obviously have biological parents. There's no one living that doesn't, unless you're a clone. But we all have these people that we call parents, and we get everything from them. Our genetics we get from them, eye color, hair color, certain predispositions to health issues and positive things as well, genetics. And we also, get all the stuff that they put on us. Now, I'm sure there are people that have really, really healthy parents and they're just really super well adjusted. But for the most part, I've never met them. I've never met someone I've never met a perfect person, not a single one. The most perfect people that I have met, they still all have stories about something that they've struggled with. So I don't know that perfection exists in this broken, fallen world. It's just my opinion. It's not your fault for what was put on you when you were a child. And I went last for a reason, because it leads into this last question. This is our last question for tonight. Whose responsibility is it? We've all alluded to this a little bit. So the answers to this question won't go on for very long. Whose responsibility is it to change my own personal beliefs and actions regarding myself and my life? Now, Jen answered in the write-up, mine. So she wrote, whose responsibility is it to change my own personal beliefs and actions regarding myself and my life? She said mine. And Jen, do you want to fill that in a little bit? Why do you think it's your responsibility?
Well, I have something else to say in regard to that.
Okay.
So what I got stuck in, I got stuck in a cycle of trying to prove the people that were projecting onto me who I was, and I was accepting it. I kept trying to prove to them that I wasn't that person anymore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working. It was not working. And I kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And it's insanity. And so for me to get to this place where I've disconnected, that doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what you think. I know who I am and I know who I want to be. It puts me in a completely different place to where I'm not spinning my wheels in this other dimension. That's just fruitless. It's fruitless. So that's what I wanted to say about that. It's my responsibility to see what was happening, to see why it was there, to look at it for a sec, and then decide to move forward in a different path and do it differently. And like Glenn said, to let it go, because it's just a war I can't win if I'm trying to change what someone else thinks about me. In order for me to think something about me, it's insanity. Yeah. It's like, I can't know that I'm creative, or I can't know that I'm funny, or I can't know that I'm a good person. Let thus these people over here agree with me. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
But that's where I've been living for so long.
Yeah.
It's insanity. So no more of that.
No more of that. I love it. Thank you, Jen. Marisa, whose responsibility is it?
Didn't you already ask me that?
Sort of.
I told you it was Glenn. Okay.
Actually, I didn't ask you that, but in your answer, you skipped ahead, and nobody's mad at you. But you skipped ahead and said it was your responsibility to change.
It is. Just to reiterate, if you're going to stay in the place of blame, shame, guilt, trauma, fill in the blank, you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
That's right.
1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. If you want a different answer to the equation, you're going to have to put a different number in that problem.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth of it. You're going to get the same results if you do the same thing over and over and over.
Yep.
And you are the one responsible, not anybody else, not your mama, not your daddy, not your pastor, not your teacher, not your boss, not your spouse. You. You.
Amen.
Okay. I think you made it pretty clear. Thank you, Marisa. Glenn, I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and say it. Whose responsibility is it to change your own personal beliefs and actions regarding yourself and your life?
Nathan's, because Kiwis are responsible for everything that goes wrong.
That's right. It's Nathan.
Sorry,
Nathan's
Nathan.
responsible. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. So I think we all agree on this one. We've been saying it kind of in the background the whole time. If you want empathy, you want someone to care about what you've been through, what you're going through.
Come talk to Jen.
You can get empathy. Yeah, you can talk to Jen. You can talk to me. And I have witnessed even Glenn having empathy toward people, which is surprising, I know, but it does happen. There's empathy. People care about what you've been through. We definitely care here at True Story Live. We care that you've been through a lot or you're going through a lot. We all have gone through something, but empathy can only get you so far. People can care all they want, but until you do something to get out of the situation that you're in, all the empathy in the world's not going to help you at all. You have to decide that you're tired of the way that you're living. You're tired of carrying around all the weight of everything that everyone that you've ever met has put on you, and you have to do something about it. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying it's just as easy as just making a snap decision. Okay, I'm done with this. I'm moving forward. Sometimes it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of introspection. Marisa, I think, was the one that mentioned, get help. There's help out there for you. There are people out there that it's their business to help you get your life back in control. There are a lot of bad therapists out there, a lot of bad psychiatrists and psychologists and people that call themselves life coach. They don't have any idea what they're doing, but there are good ones out there too. It may be a challenge to find them, but if you're really interested in putting an end to the way that your life feels to you, the way that you feel about yourself, it's worth it to try to find these people. It's worth it to try to get involved in a group or there's a lot you can do by watching videos on YouTube. There's a lot of things you can do, and it starts with the decision that you're tired of the way things are and that you want to change it. So I agree with what everyone else is saying. It is your own responsibility to do that. So that is what we're sticking with.
Yeah. And, I was going to say, I know it's hard. I mean, honestly, if I heard some of the stuff said a second ago, I probably would have bristled years ago.
Yeah.
Because being in that place where you feel, it's like you don't even feel stuck. It's so much deeper than that. You just feel like this is how it is. And it feels like Mount Everest to even attempt at trying to change it. And it is a process, I think, for a lot of people. Maybe there's more people out there like Glenn that can just wipe their feet on the mat and be done.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, it's a process, and sometimes it's painful, which I think is why a lot of people choose not to look at it.
Yeah.
And they try to keep going and have crutches, it could be a plethora of things. Drugs, sex, rock and roll, alcohol, like it could be anything. They might even be addicted to complaining about it, and just constantly talking about it with people instead of with the intent of making some headway. It's just some people get stuck there. But I think, and I know this with Glenn, when he came alongside me before I left my ex, this is, what he did coming alongside me, which did show empathy. He could have looked at me and said, screw you, I'm not going to mess with your crap. But he came alongside me, and what he showed me was that I did have control to change the situation when I was under the understanding or assumption that I had no control. And so it was a precious gift and a key that he gave me to stop focusing on this other person that I had no control over, and to focus on what I was doing or what I was allowing, and then changing my actions, which is what I did. And it was awesome. Hard, but awesome. It was incredibly worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
All right. We have reached the end of tonight's broadcast. We went through all the questions. Thank you, Jen, for a wonderful write-up and helping people, ask the question, is it my fault? And if it is, it's my responsibility. And I think we all agree on that point. So, wonderful write-up. Thank you. Thank you. So tonight's topic has been a journey of discovery. It's not your fault. The link for the song, it's very moving, is in the description. And I believe the lyrics are involved in that. So give that a listen if you have a chance. Also, just as a reminder, go to Nez Lover's channel if you want to hear the broadcast from last night and see some wonderful art and some truth or talk with yours truly involved in that. And also Jennifer, myself, and of course it's Nez's channel, so she's going to be there, of course. So give that a listen. I have one more thing to read. I just removed it. All right, so let's see. So we hope you guys enjoyed.
The link? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have the link for Out of the Dark? I didn't grab that link.
I'll grab it.
I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that got put in.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, Jen will grab it and pop that. So I'll just say something about that real quick since Marisa brought it up, and I appreciate her doing that. We did start another channel. So on True Story Live, we talk a lot of different topics, and we noticed that a lot of the people in the chat are bringing up issues of narcissists that they're dealing with in their life. And plus, it is a very popular topic now. And I'm glad that it is. I'm not glad that narcissism is running rampant in the world, but I'm glad that people are learning about it. It's not just some person being a jerk. It is a blight. It's a legitimate pandemic. It's a legitimate pandemic that's going on in the world right now. So we wanted to hear people's stories, and we wanted to address some of these issues. So Out of the Dark is our other channel that addresses some of those issues. And Jennifer posted that link. Please do us a favor, go over there and subscribe. We only have a couple stories on the channel. We're still waiting for people to submit stories. So if you have a story of suffering from narcissistic abuse in any way, whether it's short, whether it's long, whatever, please send that to outofthedark.crips@gmail.com, and we will keep your anonymity and keep you anonymous, in other words, and we won't share your name or anything if you don't want that shared. And what we do is read the email and then have some commentary about it after the fact. So thank you for that. All right, guys, we appreciate you being part of tonight's broadcast. I don't know yet who's doing the write-up for next week, but one of us will do that. And just over the next couple of weeks, we didn't expect Glenn to be here. He's got a lot of stuff going on, but we're glad that he was able to make it tonight.
Yeah.
So just over the next couple of weeks, he's got a lot of stuff going on. So if you are a person that prays, please pray for Glenn and Sandra. And we had a couple other people that mentioned they need prayer. So, Jen, do you remember who asked for prayer? They didn't necessarily ask for it, but
I think, shoot, it was the new friend of Nez's that popped in. Mr. Noss, was it Mr. Noss that needed some prayer?
yeah, Mr. Noss, Andrew
Yes.
is,
Let's pray for Mr. Noss. He has ongoing health concerns.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
Mr.
also
Noss.
Janet and Annette's daughter, Abby.
Abby, yeah. Okay. So just like I said, if anyone is a person that prays, please do that. Like to say hello and goodbye to Paul Johnstone, who popped in, and also to a constant fixture on TSL, Debbie. She always comes in, usually at the beginning and at the end, but she does listen. So hello and good night, Debbie. Thank you for always being a part of our broadcast. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We hope everyone has a good week. We will be here again next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to have another broadcast and talking about these very, very important issues. So thank you again for being here. All right. I'll say goodnight from my part. Definitely appreciate everyone on the panel for being here. Thank you for all your support and encouragement to all of our listeners. And if you're listening to the playback, just please remember to like and share. We are getting a lot more subscribers, and a lot more people are, just like we saw tonight, we got up to 20 people actually being involved in the live broadcast. So I'm very thrilled about that, and each one of you is a part of doing that. So thank you. All right. So good night from me. And let's hear from Jen. Jen, take a minute to say goodbye to everybody. If you have any closing comments, please share them.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us for this topic. I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and hopefully this was beneficial. And I hope it was encouraging that it is possible to get on the other side of this thing that many of us struggle with. And I'm happy to say I feel like I'm on the down slope on the other side. Yeah. I'm like, woohoo, running toward the end goal. So it's encouraging. And thank you guys, everyone who came in the chat and was a part of the discussion and hung out and talked, even if it wasn't on topic. That's totally fine. We're open to that. And I hope you guys all have a great week. Just know that you're always in Jason and I's prayers. And thanks to all of you who reached out in the chat for prayer. We'll definitely keep you guys lifted up. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. All right, Glenn, if you would take a minute to say goodbye, and if you have any closing comments, please share them.
Yeah, I'll say good night, and it was good to be able to make it this evening. And I'll be having a week off in Queensland where it's much hotter.
Yeah.
It'll be different. Ooh, I might need a coat. And
right.
I'll try to be here next week, but it just depends what I'm doing. I can't predict the future, only what's going to happen shortly, and that's housework.
Sure.
Housework.
Yeah. So good night, and very interesting comments, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, Glenn. All right. And we're going to turn it over to Marisa, and she will have any closing comments. Please share them and close us out, Marisa. I love the way you do that, and thank you for being willing to do that as well. Say good night.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks, everybody who shares it out on their social media. And thank you to all who watch and listen to the replay. Thank you so much. Just to recap, we can feel stuck when we're encumbered by all the crap we've had heaped on us from the past, from wherever it came from. But it is ultimately our fault if we decide to stay there, and it is our responsibility alone to move forward from that spot. And if you need help moving forward from that spot, all of us here on True Story Live, you can contact any of us. If we can't help you, we can point you in the direction of somebody who can. It helps to have someone to listen and guide you along the way sometimes. And I know any of us are happy to help that as time allows. So there's between all of us, I'm sure we can find a way to give you a listening ear because that's the first step to getting the help you need.
Yeah.
Thanks again, everybody. And God willing, we will see each other on next Sunday, right here on True Story Live. Look for the promo on my channel. Watch that replay of the Art and Truther chat. We were talking cryptids last night on the Network channel, and I'll do promos for that whenever Jen and Crips are going to be on my channel. Much love, you guys. God bless you. Stay safe out there, and God willing, see you next Sunday right here on True Story Live. Good night, everybody.